Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to review the 1981 film, Clash of the Titans. I hope I will be forgiven if I really reveal any spoilers. This is a film very close to 30 years old. I reviewed the 2010 version of this film not that long ago, and I was rather disappointed. In fact, one of my parting comments in my review is that mostly what the 2010 version made me want to do was watch the original. I came upon a cheap copy at Walmart for $5, and which was less than I could pick it up online with shipping, so I bought a copy. And it is, in fact, just as cheesy as I remember it, which in some ways is kind of amazing. I think you have to remember the context of this film, the film itself, not the story. This came out in 1981. That's after Star Wars. Think about that for a moment. Star Wars, which has become an absolute classic in its own right, which is the watermark which so many other films are measured against. In some people's thinking, one of the high points of the science fiction genre, though I think it should probably fall in the category of science fantasy more than science fiction. And this film came after it. It was fascinating just for the fact that Clash of the Titans is an homage to an earlier era, things that were produced in the 60s and the 70s. And this film was done in a very similar style. It's also very simple in its structure. The writing is simple, the acting is simple, the costuming is simple. There isn't a lot of realism as far as each scene is concerned. The people aren't expected to look like they're actually living in the world where they came from. They're always pristine and clean and presented in a way that very much makes me think of the mythology of the era they're being presented as. The film itself gives me the feeling that I'm looking at a myth, almost as a children's book version of a world that Perseus might have lived in. These aren't flesh and blood humans, they're ideals, they're icons. In that regard, I think it does a great service to its subject. Now, the acting is not what you'd call great. The people doing the acting, I think they tried, but they weren't given much to work with. The writing, again, is very simple. The story is fairly straightforward. There are things about it, however, which I found very intriguing. The owl character of, is it Bubo? I think it is. Bubo. Reminded me a great deal of R2-D2 from Star Wars. And a lot of the music reminded me of Star Wars. I mean, I'm watching this with my wife, and I'm just like being overwhelmed with how many of these things just kind of had that feel to me like they were being inspired by Star Wars. A different film in a different genre, and a vastly superior film in every way, shape, and form. In fact, I was just watching Star Wars last night for the first time with commentary, and it was quite interesting. I haven't got a chance to finish watching it yet, but it was very good. The commentary was quite interesting and made me weep for the horrible, horrible things that George Lucas has done to the universe of Star Wars. But I think they did a very good job with Clash of the Titans of picking the types of actors that really suited their roles. Harry Hamlin was a beautiful choice for Perseus. His Andromeda was a good choice. Burgess Meredith was a good choice. All of the Greek gods were excellently chosen. And even though they were very stiff, I mean literally, so most of the actors playing the gods were standing vertical. There was very little emotion. They were being presented as almost as set pieces, almost as part of the world itself, which is what the gods were. In this version, at least, the gods are presented as the petty, vindictive individuals that they were. we've got people that would take vengeance on an individual human for having hubris. These were not people that you were ever going to rebel against, because rebelling against them was going to lead you to ruin and death. And the people in the Greek culture knew this, as opposed to the people in the 2010 version who for some reason thought they could rebel against the gods and get away with it. Now, the Ray Harryhausen special effects are wonderful. They're not the greatest special effects ever done, but I am a great Harryhausen fan. I love his work, and for me, this is his swan song. This is the last great, his last great showing. It's a great kids' film in many regards, and I think it's important, however, for parents to realize that this film does have some casual nudity in it, which I didn't remember. You'd think I remember. I mean, 1981, when I saw this movie, I was a junior in high school, and nudity was something I noticed, but I had no memory of that. It probably gets cut out of the film when it's shown on network television, or things like that. And it's done very tastefully, but it's there. And the reality is that nudity was not a big deal in a lot of Greek culture, and it shouldn't be a big deal in ours. It's just nudity, folks. You're born that way. That's just the way it is. Deal with it. But that is something that some parents may want to take into account when they do rent or buy this film. But the story itself, I think, really very much falls into the category of family entertainment, kids' movies. It's the heroes are written large and simplistically. There are things that kids are going to be able to latch onto. That's a bad guy. That's a good guy. Things are not overtly complex when it comes to that regard. The fact that the gods are fickle and unpredictable is something that children are going to be able to understand, because the gods in their world are sometimes fickle and unpredictable. So, I thoroughly enjoyed Clash of the Titans. Do I think it's the best film from that era? No. Do I think it falls far short of the films that had just recently come before, such as Star Wars? Yes. But do I think it is vastly better than the 2010 version? Also a resounding yes.